مجمع پارلمانی شورای اروپا، اجلاس رسمی فراکسیون حزب مردم اروپا، بزرگترین فراکسیون سیاسی مجمع پارلمانی شورای اروپا. سخنرانی رئیس جمهور برگزیده مقاومت درباره استراتژی مقابله با بنیادگرایی و راه حل آن. استراسبورگ، 26 ژانویه 2015. راه حل نهایی برای بنیادگرایی به مثابه تهدید جهانی، تغییر رژیم ایران. ضرورت به رسمیت شناختن لیبرتی به عنوان کمپ پناهندگی، لغو محاصره ضد انسانی و تضمین حفاظت برای مجاهدان اشرفی، پیشتازان مبارزه با بنیادگرایی و تروریسم تحت نام اسلام. رئیس جمهور برگزیده مقاومت خانم مریم رجبی که به دعوت گروه‌های سیاسی مجمع پارلمانی شورای اروپا متشکل از سناتورها و نمایندگان پارلمان‌های 47 کشور اروپا و آسیای مرکزی به استراسبورگ سفر کرده بود، در اجلاس رسمی گروه حزب مردم اروپا که بزرگترین فراکسیون سیاسی مجمع پارلمانی شورای اروپا است شرکت کرد. همزمان کنفرانسی درباره بحران تروریسم و بنیادگرایی تحت نام اسلام از سوی گروه‌های پارلمانی برگزار شد و سخنرانان بر نقش مجاهدین و مقاومت ایران به عنوان آنتیتز این تهدید و بر ضرورت لغو محاصره ضد انسانی و تعهدات آمریکا و ملل متحد برای تضمین حفاظت مجاهدان اشرفی به عنوان افراد مورد نگرانی بین المللی و حفاظت شده طبق کنوانسیون 4 ژنو در مقابل خطرها و تهدیدات نیروی تروریستی قدس و شبه نظامیان دیکتاتوری مذهبی و تروریستی حاکم بر ایران تأکید کردند. اجلاس رسمی گروه حزب مردم اروپا به ریاست سناتور پدرو آگراموند، عضو سنای اسپانیا و رئیس فراکسیون حزب مردم اروپا در مجمع پارلمانی شورای اروپا برگزار شد. سناتور پدرو آگراموند در شروع این جلسه گفت: این دومین باری است که مریم رجبی در اجلاس فراکسیون حزب مردم اروپا به همراه ماست. همه خانم رجبی را میشناسند. از آنجایی که اکنون ما نیز با بحث بنیادگرایی اسلامی در اروپا مواجهیم، مطمئنم که وی میتواند نکات زیاد و بسیار جالبی را در این رابطه به ما بگوید. در اجلاس فراکسیون حزب مردم اروپا خانم رجبی که میهمان ویژه این جلسه بود، طی سخنانی با اشاره به نگرانی‌های بین المللی در مورد بنیادگرایی و تروریسم تحت نام اسلام، به تشریح ریشه‌های این پدیده شوم بر راه حل مقابله با آن پرداخت و چشمانداز تغییر در ایران را تشریح کرد و به سوالات نمایندگان پاسخ گفت.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, distinguished members. It's a great pleasure to speak at the European People's Party in the Council of Europe. I shall make a brief statement and then I will be happy to hear you and answer any question. The world is still shocked by the tragedy of 7 and 9 January in Paris. Such crimes under the pretext of Islam has outraged world conscience and has nothing to do with Islam. Khamenei's personal representatives have expressed pleasure at the crime and blamed France for what happened. The Paris incident showed that extremism is not just a problem for the Middle East, but also for Europe and the world over. This menace must be confronted. But there are two fundamental questions. What is the root of the problem and how best to challenge it? In 1997, our movement warned the international community about the danger of this phenomenon and published a book called Islamic Fundamentalism is the New Global Threat. We assert that Tehran is the epicenter of fundamentalism and that the mullahs will try to spread the war to Europe, but unfortunately those warnings were ignored. We stressed on the need to confront religious fascism and on separation of religion and state and democratic Islam as the solution of this phenomenon. The tragedy of 9/11 showed how realistic those warnings were. In December 2003, on behalf of the movement which first exposed Iranian regime's nuclear weapons program, I said that the danger of Iranian regime's meddling in Iraq is 100 times more than its nuclear weapons program. But that warning was again ignored. The result is what we see today. Today, I want to briefly discuss the strategy to confront fundamentalism, at the heart of which is the policy on Iran. Firstly, Islamic fundamentalism is an aggressive phenomenon. Public executions, stoning and gouging eyes in Iran, barbaric conduct of ISIS such as beheadings, ethnic cleansing and genocide by militias in Iraq linked to Iran, and criminal attacks in Paris are all different aspects of the same war. The war of Islamic fundamentalism against humanity and all it has achieved. Secondly, this phenomenon was born in Iran with the rise to power of the mullahs. It was fed and promoted by the mullahs, both in ideological and material sense. Although differences and even competition among different groups of Sunni and Shi'i can be seen, but the concept of the Islamic Empire or Velayat al-Faqih was generated by Khomeini in today's world. Without the mullahs ruling Iran, scattered reactionary groups could not have the capacity and the opportunity to emerge as a destructive political force. Thirdly, it is a misguided notion that Sunni fundamentalism is more dangerous than Shiite fundamentalism, and one could fight the former with the help of the latter, or to make any distinction between different brands of Islamic fundamentalism. This reflects the lack of understanding of this phenomenon and diverts attention from the main strategic threat to stability, namely the paramilitary terrorist groups affiliated to the Iranian regime in the region, because they have state backing. Yes, because they have state backing. The Iranian regime's strategy of spreading fundamentalism and creating a front of extremism is the root of the problem and the most dangerous strategic threat. The mullahs publicly brag about controlling for capitals in the region. Moreover, had it not been for the mass killings in Syria or the isolation of the Sunnis in Iraq, both at the direction of Tehran and under the command of IRGC, ISIS would not have emerged. And as recently French President François Hollande said, if in 2013 Western governments reacted to the use of chemical weapons by Syrian dictator Bashar Assad, there would have been no ground for ISIS to emerge. Fourthly, past experience shows that the mullahs need export of fundamentalism and terrorism to survive. Recently, at the funeral held for a Revolutionary Guard commander who was killed in Iraq, the Secretary of the Supreme National Security Council said, "To those who spread rumors with hostility about why we are interfering in Iraq and Syria and give our blood there, the answer is clear. If we do not give our blood in Iraq, then we have to give our blood in Tehran." 2 years ago, a senior Khamenei advisor said, if Syria falls, we have to fight in Tehran. The Mullah regime is not part of the solution in Syria or Iraq, but the core of the problem. The biggest mistake that international community can make is to be silent about the destructive role of the Mullah regime, let alone considering cooperating with this regime. No role should be recognized for the mullahs in Syria. They must be evicted from Syria. All efforts must focus to oust Bashar Assad regime. This is the first and the most viable step to destroy fundamentalism in the region. Making concessions to the mullahs in the nuclear negotiations not only increase the risk of mullahs obtaining nuclear bombs, but will further improve their ability to expand export of fundamentalism and terrorism. Only under one condition the regime might abandon its nuclear weapons program: when the mullahs see that continuing the program is more costly for their survival. Let me repeat here again that the people of Iran do not want the nuclear program. Finally, what can be done? The ultimate solution for this global threat is regime change in Iran. This monster must be destroyed at its source. Contrary to the mullah propaganda, change in Iran is in reach. Not by foreign power or foreign military intervention, but by the Iranian people and their own resistance. This is the key to resolving the Iranian problem, which the West has failed to understand. The regime domestically is in deep crisis. The people of Iran do not want absolute rule of the Velayat Faqih. They want freedom and democracy. They want free access to internet. They want gender equality. They want prosperity. They want regime change. The regime is in deep economic crisis. Corruption within the regime is decaying the country. More than 70% of the people are living under poverty line. Despite high inflation and unemployment, Rouhani has increased the budget for the Revolutionary Guard by 30% in his next fiscal budget. To bring about change in Iran, we do not need foreign intervention, but we call on all governments to reconsider their policy on Iran. Do not help the regime and do not legitimize it under the pretext of diplomatic or trade relations. Side by the Iranian people in their desire for human rights, democracy, and rule of law. The coalition of National Council of Resistance of Iran, with its composition, especially the presence of the PMI, which advocates a tolerant and democratic Islam, is the antithesis to Islamic fundamentalism. It is the political alternative for the tyrannical regime and cultural alternative to Islamic fundamentalism. We are committed to respect the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, International Convention of civil and political rights and all other international conventions. We advocate tolerance among all religions and faiths. We believe in separation of religion and the state, gender equality, peaceful coexistence, non-interference in other countries, and a non-nuclear Iran. At the end, I would like to draw the attention of the distinguished parliamentarians to the condition of Iranian opposition members in Camp Liberty in Iraq. They are pioneers in the struggle against fundamentalism and for democracy and freedom in Iran. The Mullah regime, through its proxies in the Iraqi government, after all the killings, have imposed a criminal medical siege on the camp, which so far has resulted to the death of 23 residents due to lack of timely access to medical care. I thank you in advance for your leadership on this issue and urge you to call for lifting the siege on Camp Liberty, providing and assuring security for it, and for the camp to be recognized as a refugee camp. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.